coming in hot, coming in hot. Hello, Jeff.
Hello.
How are you? And you, and you,
and you,
and anybody else that's certainly made it along here. I'm just refreshing one screen or the other, and of course, this StreamYard thing likes to, delay everything, and then you get like go live. You press go live. It says go live, and it's like, yeah, I just freaking pressed go live, and then you press it again, and it's like, are you sure that the fucking let's go?
Sure.
Right? So anyway, it would appear to me that we are now live, and
we are live. I see it.
Yeah, we're there. Okay, it's all happening. So let's get into it. Welcome everybody. I'm Peter from Brandartica, and this is Jeff, also of Brandartica, and welcome to Where the Dogs of Society Howl with
Courtney
Brandartica.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. You just the cat's out of the bag. We got a
guess.
special guest today.
I jumped too forward.
You did. You jumped the shark.
Sorry.
We're going to be talking today about you can't market a secret, or as I said earlier, you can't market a secret. Yeah, you can't. Your product might be excellent and your team may be grinding, but your packaging might even be decent. Who knows? But if nobody knows your brand exists, you're not really building a business, are you? You're keeping a secret, and secrets don't sell. And without further ado, Jeff, which is French for
further ado.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to bring in ex-Coke and Gallo brand innovation head. This person helped built Coke Zero and Apothic, and now she helps founders create brands that win at the shelf and scale quick, man. Please welcome to the stage founder and director of the Outlier initiative. Here she is. Give her a big round of applause. It's Courtney O'Brien.
Hello. How are you?
All right, we're good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Super coffeeed up, ready to rock. Of course, Courtney, you were here 2 hours early.
Yes, still on different time
zone. For that, of course. We've got a few smiley faces, and Kelly, our good friend, is so ready for this, y'all. I hope you are
ready.
Get your tray table up and your seat, your seat up, and extinguish all cigarettes, please. We're going up. All right, here we go. So, Courtney, can you just give us a little bit more of a background about you and how you came to be here and what it is that you do so well?
I mean, I think it's pretty common to say you're a strategist and you build brands. I mean, who doesn't? That's on LinkedIn in our circle. Mm-hmm. I come from the inside. I've always been client side up until a year and a half ago. So I was the kind of decision maker that would have worked with agencies like you guys. I managed large portfolios of wine brands at Gallo and was tasked with all decisions that affected the P&L, from what package it was going to be in to what liquid we were going to ask the winemakers to help us put in there, to consumer trends that we wanted to address, to obviously how we positioned the brand, line extensions, etc. I had a portfolio of about 25 brands, and some of them were in disastrous shape when I inherited them, and that was kind of that became my specialty. Acquisition brands that had been neglected, and we really needed to figure out what we were going to do with them to meet expectations. Mm-hmm. Before that, I managed innovation for all wines premium price and up, which is $10 and up at Gallo. And I had the pleasure of being able to launch and build Apothic Red before that at Gallo, and I came from Coke. So I was able to launch Coke Zero in 2000 and what year was that? 5-6. At Coca-Cola in Atlanta, and built that. That was my baby. It was a blast. And I started my career with Evian, working for Danone and reporting up through France. So I'm a brand fanatic. I love beverage because it is so simple. I mean, it's really not that complicated compared to like the product complications you could have if you were marketing a movie or technology or even, a frozen food product. It's just so much marketing and consumer behavior and consumer psychology, which I find very fun. And there's more than enough going on to keep me interested.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad that you came to join us today to talk about this. And we all have got a hand on the pulse of, CPG and drink beverage brands and lots of different stuff. Do you think that there's a visibility problem where CPG brands tend to hit a growth wall? And it isn't really because their product isn't good. It's just that they haven't figured out how to be consistently visible to the right people in the right place.
Yes. I mean, back when we all used to give our attention to the same few places, you could just buy an ad there, right? On one of the 3 television channels or
Right.
Reader's Digest or TV Guide or a magazine. And I've been around enough to remember $25 million magazine buys with Evian back in the early 2000s. I can picture the spreadsheet in my head. Now there are so many more options for both traditional and non-traditional media. I mean, I really ascribe to the Gary Vee school of anywhere your audience is giving their attention is quote unquote media nowadays. I was just listening to, Ben Branson on the Business of Drinks podcast last night, and he's all about botanicals. And so they wanted to sell in garden shops. Like, I mean, even being in a garden shop is media, right? Like you are reinforcing to a certain audience what you stand for. I don't know if I ascribe to that, to his choice there and the fact that he stood for botanicals and gardening, but there are so many more creative ways other than spending a bunch of money to buy a TV ad nowadays. But you have to be very clear on who you're talking to and what you want to say about yourself in order to come up with those ideas. And I just don't think people are that clear. So I don't think they get creative enough.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff, what do you think on that? Any notes, thoughts, allegations?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about building community, right? And what is the community? Is it because sometimes a product, can speak to different communities. And are you speaking to all of them? You're just speaking to one. This again kind of falls back to a lot of brands, like they begin with a founder's story. But the brand is so much bigger a lot of times than just the founder story. The alignment might be really great in terms of the founder sharing the story, their story with similar, people that could connect. But the brand could be so much bigger and they're just not reaching those other people.
And I think there is a role for products and there is a role for brands. But what I can't stand is when people have a product and think it's a brand and they're just talking to themselves. All 25 brands I managed were not all brands. Some of them were products. And so we treated them appropriately. They had their role. Right. But if you're building a brand, my opinion, and everyone and their mother has an opinion, a definition of what a brand is, I think it extends beyond your immediate product. I think if the brand idea is strong enough, it should inspire you to start 5 different companies to serve that. And that brand transcends that one product. And people, that is the start of a brand. When it's actually a brand is when people other than you can repeat it unprompted, what it is that it stands for.
Right. It's funny. You can go into a business and ask, and even a large, corporate setting and ask several people at different levels or different areas of the business what the brand is. And they'll give you multiple answers. And you're like, what? We're still in the same building. Robert, our buddy Robert Kogan here has a question. He's had a question for the last 40 years. I suspect Robert has had a lot of questions.
That's a long time to not Google it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Vittel. Is it owned by, I don't want to mispronounce, but is it Soji? Am I giving
Soji?
Soji. I'm making it fancier than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Is it owned by Soji, other big beverage company? That explains why it never came to the U.S. and Canada. Does that ring any bells for you, Courtney?
I'm looking it up right now. It's French and it's owned by Nestle. There you go.
Bingo, bango.
Nestle's gigantic.
Yeah. Well, in America, as you well know, at this point, we can't have nice things. There's a good reason. So that's why, Robert. Also want to give a shout out to our good buddy here, Kelly.
Kelly, hi.
You know Kelly. Kelly has got her own LinkedIn Live podcast thing going on, and that's coming up.
She does.
Kelly, drop a note in the comments so we can all see. I know you changed the date, and I hope you're feeling better. I understand things were a little kooky for a minute or two, but yeah, she's here too. So awesome, amazing. Yeah, I think that the visibility builds the trust drives velocity. And again, you're talking about audiences like not just the customers, but the industry and the buyers too. You've got to be able
Right.
to, right?
Right.
Appeal to, it's not about appealing to everyone. It's about appealing to the right audience with the right message and the right tone.
And I would
Yes.
argue it's pointedly about not appealing to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
If
That's
you're
right.
not pissing somebody off, you're doing something wrong.
We were just talking about Poppy. Is that it? Poppy?
Yes.
Or Olipop or whatever it is.
There are two
I
different
think it was Olipop.
I think it was Olipop
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah,
See, there's a problem there already.
I know.
But, you know, whatever,
That's a
they seem to be
good-
doing fine. But I was saying, you know, their marketing campaign as it came out of the gate was very, you know, I don't want to say one note because that doesn't do it any justice, but like every person you saw in the advertisements, the videos, everything was, you know, they were all young females, Gen Z, millennial, you know, and I thought, that's weird. But like they uber focused on that audience and that was their audience. It doesn't mean that people like me didn't still buy the product. Right. You know, and I thought it was interesting too, because they said, you know, it's like they modeled their campaign to look like influencers and to act like influencers, but they were just models in an ad campaign. And it just kind of gave it a vibe and a fresh spin, I thought, and that was very effective.
I think it kind of made it feel like everybody that was cool was drinking it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Well, that's the old, you know, the story. If you're at Hampton Beach and you want to go to the, you know, this club or that club, right?
Yes. Casino.
Who goes to the one with there's no line at one club and there's a huge line at the other one. Which
Goes
one do
around
you go to?
the back and everything. Yeah.
I mean,
Where
we were
Tesla's
very
playing.
early when I worked on Evian. When I came onto Evian, the team, if you remember the beginning of Evian, it was the beginning of bottled water in the United States. And everyone used to walk around saying, do you know what the backwards Evian is? It's naive. People still say that to me when it comes up.
Yeah.
But it was like the cliche was who would pay for water in a bottle? But they got you to, I mean, I can get into why it's a legitimate water brand and the tremendous amount of work they put into that product, making it pure and all that. But the point is, they got somebody to pay for something that had badge value. And one of their biggest tactics they used was product seeding, which they would, I mean, we had an agency that would just drop pallets of it in all the celebs' houses. And they'd, of course, be seen walking around with it. Nobody had these back then. And so they had them all in their purses and it was snapped in every periodical magazine.
Yeah. I just shared, it's funny, just going back to what you said, like if you don't have haters, I just shared something I found. It was on like almost like a reel on LinkedIn that someone posted, and it showed all these famous people, you know, Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber. And it's like the more haters that they had, the more successful they were.
Yeah.
Because that's the point. The point is that they're putting themselves out there, and there's going to be people who hate them. But guess what? There's a lot more people that like them.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about that with, I was talking about that too recently about, you know, people they just want the good reactions. But frankly, if you know, you got to have if you're not getting any reactions, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
So you really do need both.
And if you're just getting platitudes, you know, you're kind of meaning nothing to anybody.
That's right.
Which I think is, you know, we're talking about it like the reactions to us as people, and that's the case too, but also for brands. If you're just getting platitudes and you're not getting people talking positively or negatively, you're not going to stick with anybody.
Right.
Jeff, what was the bottle of water that we bought a couple of years ago? We sent out some client gifts. And
I think I have it. Let me go grab it.
Yeah. We ended up trying to figure out like what's special, you know. I kept pushing for like the awkward holiday card with all of us in it, right? Really awkward though. Go awkward as far as your mind can take you. Yeah, just take it a few more steps darker. Right? But we ended up sending out these bottles of water.
Berg.
And
Jeff, tell the story what it is. And it makes sense because we're Brandartica.
So in the Arctic, in the north, there's an actual company that goes out on a boat and they find like floating pieces of icebergs.
Well, wait a minute. Don't we need that iceberg? Isn't it disappearing?
Well,
Just
they're,
take a
they're
look.
allowed by the government.
Just
Take a look.
I think they leave from like Greenland or something, but they actually go out, and there's only a certain time of year that they can do it where it's safe, and they gather the ice from the iceberg, and they bottle these water. Bless you.
Thanks.
And they're like $25 water bottles.
Oh my God.
It's like water that's 40 million years old.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we were like, and I'll tell you, I kept one for myself. We all kept one
Yeah.
because I was like, I want to know what we're giving out here.
Did you taste it?
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah.
It was the best thing ever. In fact, that year on New Year's Eve, I had it in the freezer, right? Or in the fridge for quite some time. And I poured out shots for everybody, including the kids. And that was our toast at midnight, was a nice, refreshing glass of iceberg.
Iceberg.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a product of Canada, Robert, if in case you want to try to find it.
Come on, Canada.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if I might just push on into another area where I think we've all seen this, and I want to talk a little bit about the where a brand's visibility can just go to die. And I'm thinking it's like a DIY trap. You know, a brand launches with a full agency partner or creative team. They've got a clean identity. Everything's going great. Strategy, social media, packaging styled in. The momentum is ripping. And then somebody somewhere along the way goes, well, we've got this. And the cost saving mode kicks in and they start to peel back the hours and they start to think, we've got a template. Let's just handle all the posts ourselves. We can do the rest. Do you see that in your travels?
Yes.
I'm hoping you wouldn't say no.
Absolutely.
No. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's honestly, it's cost, especially with founders that have underestimated how much other costs they're going to have as they launch a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to, it's cost what I just said. And it's also, they expect immediate like escalation of sales with the first social media post they built. Like the lack of understanding of what each channel is for and what an ante is versus something that's going to buy you immediate sales. You know, building relationships, going on your first date is not going to lead to a wedding ring and 3 kids.
That's right. That's right.
But it's something you still have to do.
Right.
And I think that you can be scrappy in certain ways, but this whole either I'm going to start to direct it now because I feel like I got it, or my brother's nephew's going to take it over because he's below 35 and that's all the qualification you need.
Right.
Yeah, I think not understanding how strategic it is, and that it's just putting random shit out there.
It comes in a lot of forms too.
Yes.
I mean, we've heard, you take the lead, but we'll hire a photographer that we know, some guy that
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
A woman that knows a guy that had a baby that once.
And then you find out it's a wedding photographer. That's like his brother's side job.
My other favorite is, we're handling that in house.
Yeah.
Your last post was like February 14th. It's freaking June. Jaloon.
Right.
Jaloon.
Awesome. Love that. Let's make
That's
it
where
a
we
thing.
are right now, June 12th, Jaloon.
That's right, Jaloon.
Love it.
Yeah, we
Yes,
get a lot
and
of
then it really devolves. I mean, I have a client like that
does.
I stopped working for last fall. And I think they held on to the social agency like a month or two longer than me. And I think they've hired pieced together different things. And also the owner has always fancied himself a marketer and wants to basically direct everything himself. And it's just, I looked back the other day and I'm like, what is this brand? Like your logo says one thing, the packaging says another. All of your shots are like your own wedding photos and the same picture of you and your son on a tractor. Your target consumer is apparently a millennial female. Like I am so confused.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just because you have access to a Canva account doesn't make you and again, I say the same thing. I've been saying it for years. Just because you have an iPhone doesn't make you a friggin' photographer.
That's true.
It just, we talked about this the other day with somebody and I said, here's the analogy I use. when I'm in when you back me into a corner and I bare my teeth before I attack. I tell people, I know it's your baby. Your brand is your baby. I get it. I get why you're protective. I get why you want to be involved. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. But, when I had kids, when I became a dad and a parent, my job was to take care of them, look after them, keep them safe, try not to break them, all that stuff. And, when they get sick, as they do, you do your best with what you know and what you do, and you ask around your community. But then at some point you realize, I've got to go to a doctor. And you go to a doctor and you're going to pay for the doctor, and you go in and then you argue with the doctor and you tell the doctor, oh, hold on, right. I'm on WebMD right now and I think it's this. People do that with their agency.
Yeah. Now somebody, it's actually a former colleague and friend of mine, Libby. Hi, Libby. She launched a brand, and she has a really interesting comment that as a creative agency, I'd love to hear you guys address. As a brand owner, some agencies just use AI. I can do that myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no.
I've got an answer for Libby. You've got the wrong agency, Libby. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that happen, and I know. So our agency uses AI for a variety of things, but none of it is like let's just bang out all the creative in 5 minutes and go.
You'd be a fool not to automate tasks that are taking you away from your core function.
That's right. If I can sit down and use AI to say, hey, you know what? I need to break this thing down, this strategy document, into simpler terms and organize it really well and make sure there's no punctuation errors. It can do that for me. It's still me. It's still my voice. It's just cleaning up for me. It's the same as a photographer using Photoshop. But what Libby's experiencing, and I get it, and I feel for that. I didn't mean to be glib about it because it sucks. You've entered into a partnership. You've paid likely very good money for their expertise, and they're not giving it to you. They're just giving you something that any Tom, Dick, and Harry can do. In fact, we've had clients ourselves that go, oh, you know what? We just worked it up in AI. And I'm like, yeah, no, the fact that there's 7,000 emojis in this 10 lines, paragraph tells me so. And
do you know what I heard the other day? It was at a conference, and it was not a joke. It was someone serious on stage. I know everything about my consumer. I learned it on ChatGPT.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Not kidding.
That's horrible.
Yeah. You can ask ChatGPT to make you a beef Wellington, and it can't.
Yeah.
I use it for a lot of stuff, but consumers surprise the heck out of me. And I've been talking to them and doing primary research for 25 years. You can get in the neighborhood if you use it right along with other tools to really hypothesize your consumer. And you can even build custom GPTs of what would this type of consumer fear in life and what would they think of my product then. Consumers will always surprise you. They will always throw you for a loop in the real world. I had a client that they always push back on doing real world primary research because it adds cost, even though that has gone way down in price over time. But I had a client that's like, what about if we use AI to simulate custom research? And so I dug into it. It can be done using basically when you make personas out of it. But again, it's only pulling from things that have been historically said. It's unable to throw curveballs at you like real humans will. So we opted for a cost-effective but real human way. And that showed us oh my God, why didn't we see that? Result. We were running an innovation pipeline of 40 items through people. We could only do 5. And their reactions to the different products were the theme is X, obviously. And we never would have, it does not replace humans. And it doesn't replace what you are good at.
Right. Because here's the thing is you need a human on the front end and the back end of it. And this is what I mean is that it's only as good as the prompt is creative. You have to be creative with your prompts. It's not give me the 5 things that are, you're going to get the same thing over and over. But if I say, give me 5 things that a website is similar to different cuts of steak, that is something AI is not going to come up with it on its own. And that's the creativity.
Its level of creativity is in the toilet. I tried to use it to come up with a funny story for my kids.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny. They're like, write a story about our 5 pets. And I'm like, you know what? I bet I could do. So I put in all the information and it was terrible. Yep. Terrible. And I'm like, why is this so bad at this? You know, it can crawl the internet and pull together a whole bunch of sources and save me a bunch of time, but it cannot write a funny story.
Right. Absolutely. I remember writing something that I wanted to try to get out into the universe and see if I could pitch it somewhere, right, and make a fast, $50 million out of this. And I remember forgetting about it for years and taking it back when I started playing with ChatGPT. And I copy and pasted all the content. I told it what I wanted to do, and I put it in there, and it gave me back this pile of rubbish. And I was like, what the fuck? Now I got to go back in here and figure out what you changed, why you added these parts of the story, and it's like garbage. Right. And I realized, I said, there are certain things that you don't need it for. Mm-hmm. Right. If I need 17 different ways to, make chicken, it's going to give me 17 different ways to make chicken. That's helpful. Yes. But yeah, I mean, even down to the artwork, if I can't make it myself, then I don't want it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or if someone can't make it, like I could put things into ChatGPT and make me this with a unicorn dancing on a fiery wheel with a motorcycle helmet. And then I get it and I'm like, what is this? Mm-hmm.
I just to add to that too, just in terms of the licensing issues that are going on, the IP issues, like with Disney and Pixar is in a lawsuit now with Midjourney. And the thing is, that's going to open up just like another Napster almost, where, there are pieces of the artwork that it generates that's just grabbing from different sources, and you don't know where those sources are. And what is scary is I see on different Slack channels that I belong to with founders saying, oh no, I did the packaging with AI. And I'm thinking, that is not a good position to be in, because 3 years from now, somebody's going to send you a cease and desist.
Yeah. We used to even have that with some of our in-house designers at one of the large companies I worked at, or large, credible agencies. And, we never could prove it. It might have been coincidence. They say there's no completely original stuff anymore, but we'd be like, wait a minute. Doesn't this reminds me of this brand? No wonder, it, because you just see stuff, you integrate it into your psyche and you're inspired by it and it comes out.
Kelly also, she's supporting that statement, especially, right. And it makes sense. They're not. There's no permission from the artist before using their copyrighted material. If I could bring us back to center stage for a moment, Robert wants to know, what's the deal with Coke Zero? Can we talk a little? Can you give us a little bit of background on what that experience was like and how things went down?
Yeah, I mean, Coke hasn't proven to be especially litigious. Coke developed a better approximation of real Coke sugar flavor than they had back in the 1970s when they launched Diet Coke. So they launched another one. I was not privy to the discussion around the strategy of doing that. I still worked with Evian at the time, but they developed a brand called Coke Zero. It tasted more like Coke, which people like me did not want. I was a happy Diet Coke drinker. I did not like the sugary flavor of Coke. If Coke Zero had been around when I was 10, when I was switching to diet, maybe it probably would have been an easier transition. But it wasn't, and I was really addicted and still am to the flavor of Diet Coke. So we were not going after happy Diet Coke drinkers. The insight was that it was the beginning of really starting to think about sugar. Europe was ahead of us. They were all about no sugar. And I remember arguing with the European brand team. I'm like, people don't talk about no sugar here. It's got to be no calories. And then 5 years later, the no sugar thing was here. So we switched to that. But the insight was the same, which is this tastes like Coke and it has no calories, and it has no sugar. Because people were leaving Coke and not going to Diet Coke. Not the people that liked Diet Coke. They were still with Diet Coke. But there were a lot of people leaving Coke as they got older and they couldn't drink 5 Cokes a day and going to Gatorade, believe it or not, because they thought it was healthier at the time, tap water. And so we were losing that profit. I still say we. So this was invented to keep them in the portfolio, basically. And Coke was really ahead of its time. I think it's still so many companies could stand to use a lesson from this. Keeping them in the portfolio is better than losing them, even if my precious brand that I want to be the most successful is not the one that they're choosing right now.
Right.
So they allowed me to Catalina coupon off of Coke Classic. So I remember making paper airplanes out of those Catalina coupons and throwing them at my friend who worked on Coke Classic, because we were like fighting within the same brand team. But
right.
That was the point. Like, I ran taste challenges against Coke. You could presumably say that runs the risk of taking people away from Coke prematurely, because now that they see it tastes just like it and it has 0 calories, why wouldn't they switch? But in reality, the whole point was to keep them in the Coke franchise.
Yeah.
And so it was way ahead of its time. The people who were happily drinking Diet Coke continued to. I've never drank a can of Coke Zero in my life. I still drink Diet Coke every day. But we did know, and we actively discussed, hey, what about the current 10-year-olds and the future 10-year-olds who are growing up with this better approximation of what Coke tastes like now? Diet Coke might die eventually over time. And we had that discussion, and we're like, yep, it might. But, we got a better sweetener. We're going to use it. And so now you see it happening. Have you seen any displays where there's hardly any Diet Coke or it's even missing? Mm-hmm. I certainly have, because I search out Diet Coke. It has gotten harder and harder and harder to find.
Yes.
So I think 10 years from now, it's going to be virtually.
It's going to be really the next tab.
Yeah. But that's the story.
I love it. It's crazy. I mean, I really don't drink much soda at all. I've got plenty of other vices that are damaging. Right. So I don't need that.
You don't need that advice.
I'm living a clean, healthy lifestyle. I've been following the Keith Richards diet. It's
You get a blood transfusion?
Yeah, every few months I get a blood transfusion.
Yeah, that's a good way to go.
Yeah. No, but we also had a great question here, and I wanted to highlight this, and we may not get to all of it, and it may be hard to answer Libby's question. So let's all take a crack at it. And Libby, as I had mentioned earlier, if you DM me after this, I'd happily just talk to you specifically about what it is you're doing and just see if I can give you any.
Libby worked with me on Evian, by the way.
Awesome. Okay, cool. She wants to know, what do you recommend for emerging brands trying to create the presence and brand recognition of a Coke or Evian? Courtney, Jeff?
No, you guys go first this time. I've already got mine.
You go first. Put you on the spot.
Oh my goodness. Coke? Do you need like 50 to 100 years? But no, I think you have to, I think every brand has to start somewhere, right? So that the idea with starting a brand and getting the reach, you have to start with a foundation like every other brand does. It's not just about, I don't know how it was when Coke started, but I'm sure it's a lot harder to get into retail now. But at least the advantage now with technology is that you can build a community on social, let's say, or even, go into influencer types of marketing. And you can establish a really good community, that is supportive of the brand, it has that reach that in terms of expanding your bubble, right? Of where your footprint is. And you can start off with direct to consumer too, which, Coke didn't have the luxury of that.
Huge advantages now versus back in the day.
But you have to start somewhere, and that's where you start. And I think from there, you establish yourself within a region or even just locally, and then you can move into other regions or go national, depending on what your plan is for scaling. But I think without that beginning part, that social proof, so that the retailers feel like, okay, this isn't going to be all push. There's some pull here. Unless you do that and you build that foundation, you can't become the next Coke.
Right.
That's my thought, is you have to start there, and really, really, dedicate a lot of time and, yes, some resources to it, because it really is going to give you that base of people that are going to share your brand with other people.
Right. I think my comment on this, and I'll try to keep it concise. I think when you're ready to have agency partnerships or a team of consistent partners, the key word here is going to be consistency and creativity and clarity. Making sure that you have those three things to start. You got to get your plan together. You got to start putting the message out there. But what's the message you're putting out there? Does the brand have a voice? Does the brand have a visual identity? And if it does, great. But is it resonating with anyone? That's the other thing to really explore before you get all the way out into the world, into the big city, and realize you wore the wrong outfit, or you know what I mean? You got the wrong shoes on. So I think that's part of it. And then I think finding a creative partner when you're ready to do that, they're supposed to they're supposed to take things off your plate. They're supposed to allow you an opportunity to worry less. And they shouldn't be creating more homework for you or mailing it in, if you will, as you had mentioned earlier, because that's all that is. That's mailing it in. And that's not what they're there for. You, as you well know, could do it yourself. So I think those are some of the things that, the clarity, really taking a look at your visibility, is the things that you're putting out, are they clearly on brand? Would someone new understand who you are and what you offer? And is the content actually building any trust or community, or is it just filling up space? That's my thought.
Yeah, you want me to add a quick thought?
Please do.
I totally agree with what both of you said. Jeff, I think, feels like he's dropped the mic and has earned his exit now. Totally agree with that. I think there's a lot of advantages that small businesses have that they didn't used to. You couldn't even get started back in the day. I ran a poll at the beginning of my panel last week at EBEV, the conference, anonymous poll. A lot of big brands in the room, small brands, founders, etc. Less than half. The question was, would you rather in today's environment be a big brand with a lot of budget and reach, or a small challenger brand with edge and momentum? I think I worded it. Mm-hmm. Any guess at what percentage said what? I had no idea. This was like a total experiment. The majority, although not by much, but the majority chose challenger brand. I mean, can you imagine? That shocked me. They chose against having money. So, I think that goes to show that you can do what you need to do, no matter, you need to have some money. You have no business doing anything if you're like literally can't buy groceries, but you can do what you need to do on a very low budget, and don't mistake money for doing the action. I think so many people are like, before I can even launch, I need a bunch of money. Okay, then nobody's going to invest without some momentum, without what your partner said, without knowing that there's a group of people that are buying it and buying it again and that are fanatical about it. And now the infrastructure is in place with the ability to sell online, the multitude of co-packers and ability to produce small runs with social media, to start very small, to make the right choices, and to get super clear on the things that you were talking about, Peter. There's a reason I'm wearing this color today. This is my brand color. You look at my website, my LinkedIn, it's all this color. This is part of consistency and how you show up and what people can expect you to talk about. They don't need to randomly be figuring out what you stand for on any given day.
Right.
So that is where I would lean in on.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that it is. And I guess I always come back to the fact that, $1 million ideas they don't cost $1 million to come up with. Or,
right. It costs brain power.
Yeah. I mean, people go, well, I can't afford you. And I go, no, you can. It's just, let's talk about ideas. Let's talk about things you can implement. Let's talk about concepts that work for you, not against you. I mean, one of the biggest things I find is that, we're going to handle the social media ourselves in-house. And I go, cool, you're a 70-year-old man with an audience of teenage girls. And how are you going to possibly create the content without, finding yourself in prison? And I look at that and I go, it's just, when you DIY at that level, you're not doing yourself a service. Plus, it's something that you're not good at. And
I think it really comes down to empathy. I mean, we are not strong at empathy as a race, I don't think, and as a country. People cannot seem to put themselves in other people's shoes unless it literally happens to them, or their daughter. And so how are you possibly going to speak to what Gen Z females want when you're a 40-year-old Indian dude living in, I've literally seen it, and it's just unbelievable that it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, my role at Disney required me to do that, and I had to learn it, but I think I was a natural storyteller anyhow.
Yes.
And I mean, I've been asked to, do different clients, different projects, and they go, well, how would you know? You're not a woman.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, but my mother was a woman.
That's what a lot of us do for our jobs is empathy.
We inhabit, we empathize.
Yes, but a busy founder who's running around trying to, it's just not a skill I've seen anyone have.
Absolutely. I think we may have lost Jeff. There may be some things going on his end. So I wish him Godspeed and good luck that's going on, whatever's happening on his end. So, I think that those are a lot of good actionable steps. I think that just choosing your important platforms, figuring out who you are, simplifying your content, finding a great partner. Those are all things.
Figuring out who your consumer is, I would add.
Absolutely. It's so funny when people say, no, I know who my consumer is.
No.
And I go, do you? Where are you getting the information from? And I go, a lot of times people just are making it up. And I'm like,
yes.
Sarah doesn't exist and Tom isn't anybody, it's like Tom from MySpace, like who, where did you get this information?
What are they frustrated by? What do they fear?
Right.
What are, these are the things that lead to, how could you turn a category trope on its head in order to address Sarah's fears?
Yep.
You need to get deep on this stuff.
That's right. And it's also just, again, fishing where the fish are. Certain audience members are going to be all over TikTok. They're not going to be on Facebook. Certain audience members are going to be very adept at spending time looking at YouTube, and others are not. So you have to figure out where you belong in this. I've had clients that say, we'd like to explore TikTok. I'm like, you guys can barely get through Facebook yourself. Like, what are you going to do on
TikTok?
TikTok?
Focusing on tactics. I think that would also, what you're saying, go back to Livy's question.
Yeah.
You cannot do, especially if you do not have $1 million and tons of different team members, a million things well. So focus on what where your audience is giving their attention and what you can do with the limited resources you have well.
Awesome. And I see Libby's on Amazon.com and Walmart.com. That's a great place to be. And if I freaked you out by saying DM me, I just meant, if you want to have a chat offline, happy to do so. Not sure if I freaked her out.
I don't think so.
I have that ability. She is okay. Good to know. Any parting thoughts, final words, anything you want to share? And especially, I'd like you to tell people where they can find out more about you.
Sure. Yeah. I keep saying it. I say it every day in different ways. And so many people think they got it, but they don't. It's the clarity that we've been mentioning the whole time. Mm-hmm. What you're doing, for who, why they should care, why you're doing it better than your competitor, and then how you're going to say that and disrupt their thought pattern when they are not walking around looking for you. They're not. They're taking their kids to school. They're worrying about summer camp. They're trying to afford groceries. They're pissed about politics. Their dog ate the sofa. Your brand is not in their brain. So how are you going to use what you uniquely do because of your deep knowledge of them and your limited funds and resources to get into their brain? It is not easy, especially when you are trying to run co-packers and your packaging just went up in cost and you're lost your distributor. And I mean, it's hard. So I think it sounds easy, but very few people are doing it well. And when you do it well, all those millions of different options you have in marketing become so much easier because you're like, well, this 90% of tactics I could do doesn't even make sense anymore. Like, what could I really do if I'm getting scrappy to get this, these eyeballs and this awareness for cheap?
That's right.
And you don't have to have money. I think this is more relevant the less money you have.
Yeah, I love that. And that gives, I think, a lot of people a lot of stuff to work with and hope.
Yeah.
I think people worry often about, I don't have the money. It's like,
right.
You've got a great product. You've got a great idea. There's an audience for it, all of these things. And as someone had said to me earlier, when people need the money, they'll find it.
To answer the second part of your question, you can find me on either LinkedIn or the outlieriniative.com.
Yep.
I'm dedicated to making brands outliers because I think that's what I've had the ability to do in my career. And I blame it all on this. All my successes, I blame on what I just said. I actually have a challenger brand playbook, both in the featured section of my LinkedIn and on my website that you can kind of start with to get some ideas that kind of take my prompts even further and apply it to your business. And then message me if you want to chat through anything.
I love that. And, before we go, I was going to say really quick, I think that at the end of the day, for brands to be visible, to be successful, you've got to be seen, you've got to be consistent, you've got to put out content that's worth the follow. There's a lot of people at it, and a lot of people are competing for that very limited space. So, don't just put out whatever. And if you're doing Canva stuff, here's my hint or trick for anybody. And this goes for Wix or any of these other, templatized things. Never use the template for ideas. Use things as a guide, but then break it. Take a template and destroy it. Nothing you do. When I look at businesses who have built, and I use Canva a ton. If it looks like it came out of Canva, I kind of think it sucks. And and I'm being honest. Never let your Canva show. Okay.
That's awesome. My coach had to tell me, your stuff looks like you're using Canva. I'm like, I did it well. He's like, it is not as world-class as your brand is. And I think you got to think about that too. Does your content reflect the level of quality and premiumness and sophistication of your product and your consumer? Does your content reinforce that?
I love it. On a personal note, we were talking a little bit about Hampton Beach earlier. How I remember the police used to throw me and my friends off Hampton Beach. They said, if we see you in that vehicle again circling this block, you're going to be under arrest. And
that's what you do in Hampton Beach.
That's right. Well, the vehicle was like a 57, some kind of Mustang muscle car convertible that had been rescued from a junkyard, split in the middle, covered in spray paint, probably things on there that didn't make sense in public. But yeah, and you were saying that you guys are coming up for a visit. I'd love to connect with you then if we can. Maybe we're taking a Tesla show or something. And what was the last concert you think you went and saw? Or what was the concert maybe? Did you go see anything at Hampton when you were a kid?
No, because I was a kid.
Yeah.
My parent and I was the oldest, so I had a young sibling too. Like we did not go to concerts.
My parents.
But I did perform in the talent show at the Shell.
Oh, yes. I love it. And
yes.
Probably some
my
evidence.
sister and I wore matching dresses and we performed something. I don't even remember what. I think I was like 9.
Yeah. I think I love that. We talked about the Ashworth.
Yep.
I was there well before it.
Oh no, we lost Peter now.